Aye.
It is red.
Perfect. All right, we will call the meeting to order at 7:01. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So we will move on to correspondence for the evening.
No correspondence this evening.
All right. Good news commendations. So we'll start down that way.
I can kick it off. All right, so from Mountain View, the NVMS Music Department successfully hosted over 240 students and teachers from 18 Central New Hampshire middle schools for the New Hampshire MEA South Central District Festival on May 9th. NVMS had 13 vocalists and 3 instrumentalists. The festival band and chorus had an amazing performance in the afternoon, and thank you to the Cooperative Middle School for hosting 4 of the MVMS string students at the Southeast Festival. The MVMS Music Department is excited to present the students' work on May 19th, 20, and 21st at 6:30 at Mountain View, and they will also be visiting and performing at New Boston Central School on May 28th. The 8th grade Language Arts Department has started reading The Outsiders in conjunction with their Poetry projects. And for those people that don't know what the Poetry is, it's where the students bring in white shirts and the students find favorite poetry drawings and they decorate their t-shirts, and then the kids all wear them. And it has all of their favorite poetry and stuff written all over. And they do that kind of in conjunction with their discussions on the Outsider book and novel through Socratic seminars. And the students get to keep their poeties, I'm going to struggle on that one, the poeties forever. And the last thing is the SAS testing is well underway.
Thank you, Mr. Davis from the middle school. And we'll go on to our student rep, Brady.
Starting last week and going into this week, we've had AP testing at the high school, so lots of testing, lots of students involved. We've been doing that here in the library. I think we had like around 60 kids taking just the calculus test today, so definitely our biggest group, but a lot of kids testing. These next 2 weeks, there's a lot going on in the science classes. Some of the environmental science and the environmental club is going to the Envirothon next Tuesday, the 19th, where they'll compete with other schools about kind of information about current environmental topics, specifically non-source and source pollution. The day after that, students from our upper level science classes will be going to Rye Beach to do their training for the marine bio project, which then actually takes place the next week following that, and is all 4 days of that week where sophomore biology students go to Rye Beach and they learn about the marine biology in that area, and our upper level students kind of do the teaching there, and it's a really fun day. What else? Also next week, the same day as the Envirothon, we're going to have our student council elections, which does mean there is going to be the election of the new school board rep, so I will have somebody with me for the next meeting to kind of show them what exactly I do here. And then there's prom next week, next Friday at St. A's. Very exciting stuff. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Brady. I will now turn the meeting over to Mr. Talbot.
Are you skipping?
Miss Bean.
You don't want to skip me. I have stuff today for you. Okay. This one's a little timely, but still wanted to get in front of you. This year's Science Olympiad state competition, which was held back the end of March, Goffstown's teams had a great day with our overall 4th place for our varsity team and 10th for our junior varsity. Students that got top 3 medals in their areas of expertise included Kira Schaefer, Chloe Dumet, Julie Schaefer, Aiden Cockrell, Paul Gallagher, Emma Bird, Bella Damboys, Sophia McAllister, Noah Babin, Eli Douglas, and Harold Hieronymus. Additionally, students with ribbons were, I'm gonna refer to my friend here.
Mason Nemec, Milo Kronvold, Narahan Sivakumar, and then
job.
Mason Emerson.
Thank you. Miss Kelly and Miss Ferretti, teachers in our visual arts department, wanted to thank the GHS administration and the school board for their support during their funding of their trip Friday, May 8th to Manchester. They facilitated the trip for the GHS interior design class and the AP art students. They toured 2 Franklin Lloyd Wright houses during the first half of the day, paused for lunch, and then toured the galleries at the Courier Museum for the other half of the day. Students really enjoyed this trip, and teachers and students really want to thank you for making that possible. In Family and Consumer Science Department, we're currently conducting a 2-week culinary competition designed to provide students with a comprehensive and real-world experience in the food service and entrepreneurship fields. During this project, each group is going to present a business plan, design a menu, target GHS staff as their consumers, calculate food costs, prepare an ingredient order with a structured budget. The planning phase is going to emphasize financial literacy, decision-making, and practical application of math and literacy. Students then move on to the food production, where they're going to prepare and serve their selected menus to school staff. Throughout the process, they're going to be expected to demonstrate proper food safety and sanitation practices aligned with their Serve Safe standards, effective kitchen organization and teamwork, and then they'll be evaluated. And then finally, our students in graphics arts, too, continue to develop real-world products. I thought she had put them on easels already, but she didn't, and I can't even figure out how to open the easels. So in place of you seeing them around the room, I'm going to pass these around so you can see what our students are doing. They're excited to share what they're doing. They're actually working with Goffstown community members to do this, to design a logo that can be used in social media and nonprofit. And they're also excited to share, the teachers are excited to share that this program is growing to the point that they'll have 6 sections of graphic arts in the fall and 3 sections of graphic arts honors. So the program is growing extensively. I think when she started, there was only a couple sections.
Good.
And that's my news from Goffstown High School.
Mr. Davis, did you already go?
Yes.
You already did, okay. Wendy?
Mr. Talbot, thank you. Over at Glen Lake, the Glen Lake staff would like to thank their parent group for just putting on an amazing Staff Appreciation Week, and that's true in all of our buildings. So a special thank you to our parent groups, parents. Some of our students did really kind things for teachers, wrote nice letters, things like that. So thank you to all of everybody that was involved in that. Our preschool students have started the ABC Countdown to Summer, which is a daily alphabet celebration that marks the end of preschool. So last week's preschool week ended with D for Dance Party Day, and today was E for Exercise Day. So this is just the beginning of the special events that mark the end of the year for Glen Lake. Over at Maple Ave, again, a special thank you to everybody involved in Staff Appreciation. Over at Maple, May is extremely busy. There are a number of field trips that are either have happened or are going to happen. On Friday, May 8th, the first grade went to Squam Lake Science Center, and they were thrilled to see all of the animals there. This Friday, second grade is visiting American Stonehenge, while the last 2 third grade classes will be going to the YMCA for their water safety program. If the board will remember, we started this last year. There's a very generous donor from the YMCA who pays for our students to be able to get water safety. They bus the students over, they feed our students. So all of our third graders at Bartlett and at Maple Ave are doing this, and then that donor has actually extended it to New Boston Central School this year as well. So we're really excited about that. And then on Wednesday, May 20th, the 4th grade will be attending Strawberry Bank in Portsmouth. And lastly, on May 22nd, Maple Ave will be hosting its Memorial Day assemblies. So just a reminder for parents to be watching the newsletter for information about that. And over at Bartlett and all of our buildings, state testing is in full swing. Third and fourth graders have completed the writing portion of their New Hampshire SAS, and this week they're working on their reading sections. As always, we do a lot of things to get our students excited and motivated for those tests. And new this year, they're doing a big brain battle over at Bartlett, where classes work together as a team and effort matters for them being able to earn points and to be able to earn some really cool prizes. So special thank you to Mrs. Pishka and the staff over there for just coming up with really creative things to get our students motivated for that test. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other good news, accommodations? Shane?
I just had a quick one. Although I'm a day late, I just want to say thank you to all the mothers at this table, in the community, across the world. Happy Mother's Day, although it's a day late. We weren't here yesterday. Sorry. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms. That's it.
I don't think you're sorry about not being here yesterday.
Yes, usually our meetings are the first week of every month. So that would have been the Staff and Faculty Appreciation Week. So we weren't here, but all of the faculty and staff should have gotten a video from the board. And I just want to say everybody here did a great job.
Agreed. And
Yeah.
I think staff were really appreciative.
Yeah.
I think you guys
Yeah.
did a really nice job. Well done.
So,
Some of the pictures that were added in that video of the teachers and staff was
Yeah.
great too.
yeah.
It's much better than looking at us talking.
Yeah, I know. The cutaway from Laura was excellent. Like, that was the first one. She had a lot to say. It was great. Great. Any other items for today? Okay. We'll move on to public comment. Not seeing any public comment. We will close public comment. Up next is a food service presentation. So come on up.
So we'll welcome Megan Bizzaro, our food service director. Welcome, Meg.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all, and I appreciate being early on your agenda. So I'm here to give you a little snapshot of what's happened in food service from a participation financial perspective. But to start with, I do want to give you some of our department's good news. We had an administrative review this year from the state. They happen about every 5 years, and we did very well. They look at everything from how we purchase, if it came from the U.S. or not, wellness policy, meal charging policy, production records. They went on-site to Bartlett and stood and watched breakfast be served, and then stood and watched lunch be served, and everything went beautifully. The on-site staff did a great job. But I just wanted to let you know that we did have our big state review, and now we're good for hopefully 5 years. New Boston will come up probably in the middle of that, but we did get through it. We have a few things to kind of clean up, as you always do with any kind of state review, but we should have this all wrapped up by the beginning of June, I believe. You all should have a nice document in front of you about food service. I'm going to start off with our meal participation. The first column is last year, and then the second column is this year. Breakfast, we've had a slight decrease, and lunch, we actually have had a really nice increase. That increase has happened primarily at the high school, and with only one lunch, and that it still is amazing to me that we're serving more reimbursable meals each year, and at the middle school. Maple Ave has stayed steady, and Bartlett has been a little bit below the prior year, but part of that is a function of lower enrollment in that building. The eligibility, and this is something that you are always interested in. This is our free and reduced families, and this is based on information we receive from the state for direct certification, as well as when parents fill out an application. So you can see with free, we actually dropped this year. Part of why we dropped is there's been a change this year in how we process meal applications. In the past, if someone filled out a paper application or did it online, I just take it at face value and everything is fine. And if they put a case number into this little box that says case number for food stamps or temporary assistance, we take it at face value. This year we could not. We had to, if you will, verify those because a lot of folks were using Medicaid, and in New Hampshire, Medicaid numbers do not qualify you for free meals, but they do in Vermont and Maine and and Massachusetts. So when our state office was actually audited by Boston Regional, they found a lot of families who had moved in from those states using their Medicaid number, just thinking, oh, we're fine. And because we, at that point, did not have to verify the number, there was a lot of families receiving the benefit who, from a New Hampshire point of view, should not. So that's why we have lost some families, because when I ask for the information, either it's outdated or they don't have it, so I can't approve them. So, yes.
So that drop-off was not an interest drop-off, it was a eligibility drop-off?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Very much more of that than anything else.
Thank
So,
you.
And you could see our reduced actually went up this year. So, so it's more having to do with a stricter approval process. The next one is not one that we're excited about whatsoever at any level or point of view, is our active student accounts receivable. You can see we've had a huge increase over last year, and it's been, it's at New Boston as well. So it's not just Goffstown, it's in New Boston. Some other districts are seeing this as well. But the caveat I would like you to know is that roughly at the end of March, we had $23,000. We actually, when you look across the state, we actually are still low. For example, I believe Concord was up close to $100,000. Now, I know they're a much bigger district than we are, but that's still quite a big dollar amount. You know, what are we doing to attack this dollar amount? Because this obviously affects our bottom line. We do very much the same as we have in the past. Make phone calls. We send emails 2 to 4 times a week, depending upon what level folks have in their account. I will mail out the bill with a meal application right with it. In the information that families get from us, it always has how to apply, how to contact me, and how to reach out to St. Matthew's Church, which has a fund that will send, if the parent goes to their website, they can request a payment be sent, and then it's sent to my office, and then I will post it on the account. So we are trying to use all of the avenues that we can, but unfortunately it has risen this year. I have heard from some families this year, and this is the first time I've ever heard this before, and actually our manager in New Boston, when she called, a family, she got the same answer, was, do you know how much gas is? Do you know how much groceries are? I will pay you when I can, because they know we're going to feed their child, and they have other pressures happening right now. And the people who we spoke with were people that we didn't speak with last year. These are new families who are, you know, some of you have heard me say this before, but I still believe in this country we are missing that hardworking families who are working really hard to try and make it work, but just can't quite get there. And they don't qualify for reduced price, so then they're stuck. And we have the belief that all students must have food. As Doug says, they're here for 6 hours, we got to feed them. We got to feed them something good. So we are going to be looking, Doug and I, and Brian will look over the summer at what other districts are doing to see if there's something out there that we're missing besides, something that's very harsh. We don't want to do anything harsh, and I know that this board in the past has agreed with that sentiment. So we will bring hopefully something to you in the fall for you to take a look at that might help us to help our families a little more. Any questions about this increase or concerns?
Jeannie, go ahead.
Maybe this would be good information to get out to our representatives so that maybe the state could reverse what they've done so that we could go back to the old way and, or align with the other New England states at least, if they're seeing that this kind of thing is happening.
So you're talking about having the Medicaid number as a categorically eligible for free meals. And that has come up a few times, and it would be great if we could get it there. I do believe some of the concerns from the legislature is how much it would cost them if more students qualified. That's just what I have heard.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. It's certainly not anything that we can't go back and, I sit on the New Hampshire Hunger Coalition, and they sponsor a lot of, or help to sponsor a lot of legislation, and one of them it was that a few years ago. This year, they did not bring it back. They chose to try and do more education in the hopes to bring it back, probably next year. But they read some tea leaves and decided this is not the year to push.
But if they had this info, with towns across the state.
Correct.
It would be a big eye-opener, I would think.
I would hope so.
Laura?
I just wanted to clarify for the public, so if a child has a balance on their account, they're still able to get the same lunch as everyone else, right?
Yes.
There's
Yes.
no, okay.
Yeah, and that's right in our board policy. It's been there since 23, since after COVID.
It used to be an alternative meal,
Yeah.
Now it's
but
the
we
same.
changed that.
Okay, thank you.
Retta?
Do you know if anyone's collecting data from all of the schools? I mean, this is a significant jump. And if-
We have encouraged the Department of Ed to track this at the state level because all New Hampshire school districts are dealing with this same challenge. So we think that this is a state level issue.
Yeah, it would, occasionally we try and grab the information through the buying group, but that's not the whole state. But I can tell you, for example, Bow, small district, they have a no charging policy, period. End of story. And they have very little outstanding. But they also, if a high school student comes up and doesn't have money, that high school student does not get any food. So, not sure that would be something that we would want to stomach.
Retta, please continue.
Just as a follow-up, and maybe this is more for Brian, if they are looking at this information, could they include that policy that might clarify, why there might be discrepancies from school to school?
Yeah, I think fundamentally the state could look at whatever data they'd like, but as Jack has said many times at this table, New Hampshire is the only New England state that doesn't provide lunches to all students. So this is something that the legislature has evaluated in the past, and they have not chosen to fund this. So it leaves us where we continue to be.
Yeah.
Jeannie?
Kind of the other thing, when you think of it, is the churches are running like food banks for groceries for people. And it doesn't really seem fair that they also have to help provide school lunches, because most of them also help with weekend bags. So the state really should be taking some responsibility in the food situation when you think of it, and not expect churches and community programs to be the people that are doing all of this when the state really has, a responsibility here too.
Know what Obama
Say, I keep looking over here at Jack, so Jack, please go ahead. I'm waiting.
I don't need to get on the soapbox, but yeah, vote, and you know what I think. I would wreck the budget and feed all the kids. And,
Yeah.
try and pass it through and see if the mandate is really that we're so depraved that we don't believe we should feed kids. But I know that is not the place of the board, but certainly my place. And I've been on the soapbox, and the evidence that kids that are fed do better in school is out there every way, shape, and form. And the reason it doesn't happen is because we vote for the wrong people to go to the state, in my humble opinion.
Dan?
Two things. Jack, if you're tired on the box, I'll take a shift. My question is, when I look at expenses, the 1.4 million, is that an accurate capture of what it costs to feed the kids in the school system today?
That's right from the general ledger.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
it is. So I'll move down, okay?
Yes, please.
So you can see where we're projecting to be. We still have May and June, May and June to go, but this is where we're expecting to come in, roughly 1.3 million in revenues, 1.4 in expenses, to give us a net loss of around $120,000. Now, I do break out and track what are our capital expenditures of $73,000. We bought $40,000 worth of equipment for the serving line for Mountain View. We had about $15,000 to $18,000 in compressors that need to get fixed. We had $3,500 just the other day for a dishwasher booster. Every time Impact Fire came in, they saw our suppression systems and said, "Oh, no, that's not right." It was kind of got to be sadly funny every time they showed up. We've had, and those are things that we use our fund balance for, because those are things that once we fix them, they should last a little longer than 2 days. And you can see that we started the year, our audited fund balance was $314,721. If we just look at the day-to-day operations in terms of a profit and loss, we would have lost $46,000 if we didn't spend any money on capital expenditures, which isn't too bad, but it's still a loss. At this point, we are projecting a fund balance after all of everything is said and done of $195,381. Still around $200,000 in the bank for us to work on. We are looking at probably 4 new ovens for Mountain View. We've had trouble with them all along. And that'll be probably about $30,000, no matter which, if we go with convection or with a newer technology called Combi. So that right now is the biggest dollar that I can see that we're probably going to need to replace over the summer. So that's part of what those dollars are for, so that we can buy what we need when we need it or ahead of time, and that's what we're trying to do with that. Obviously, we're trying to find ways to increase revenue. The elementary schools, it's really, really tough. Lunches are tight, and, we want them to eat lunch. We don't want them worrying about, did I buy the ice cream today? No, we're not going down that road. I'm not going to have a 8-year-old crying because they don't have 50 cents on their account to have an ice cream. That's not a way to have a good day. So at the middle school and high school is where we focus on the a la carte sales, and that really does help to try to generate extra revenue to pay for the lunches, because the price that we pay does not fully pay, that we charge or that we receive from the feds doesn't fully cover all of the expenses that we have. Our labor, next year we're looking at a 4% increase. That's the year 4 of their contract, which is fabulous, but that's 4% on our labor. Food will go up, all of those things will go up. We're spending on average probably about $2.25 on food for every lunch. When I convert all of our breakfasts and a la carte sales, I kind of go back to that common denominator and the fractions there. And then we're spending almost $2.50 in labor as well. And we get a total on a student who is on our free meal program, because that's really the dollars that we can truly count on getting. We're getting about $4.60 from the feds. So you can see how tight it really is. And that's not paying for supplies, it's not paying for anything, it's just paying for food and labor. So we are on a shoestring, but we're not alone. Pretty much everybody across the country is the same. So.
Meg and I meet
Yes.
monthly. We talk about finances quite a bit during that time. And, as this year started, what we started seeing was that supplies were actually coming down. Not only were they stabilizing, but they were coming down. That's no longer going to be the case. We both believe due to gas prices. Food prices have not come down. They started going up less, but they did not come down. But I think everyone's expecting food prices to continue to go up at a higher rate at this point as well. So, the board, we've asked for smaller increments as far as increases before, knowing that we could kind of bite into that fund balance as well. But, what we did see as stabilizing is no longer projected to stay kind of the same. It's expected to go up at this point.
And we're already paying a fuel surcharge with our produce company of $4.75 a drop. And we have 4 drops across the district, sometimes 6 drops a week. Depends upon how the cooks are ordering. And that's adding up fast. So, but we are feeding more students, so that's exciting. It's not all doom and gloom. It really is. And you have amazing teams in your kitchens. They are excited, they are trying new things, and it's May, and the elementaries are trying a unicorn parfait this week, complete with a sugar cone as the corn. I have old kids, not little ones. So you do have great people who are trying to do some great and fun things for the kids. So.
We see that there's an ask down here for
Yes.
pricing, so.
Yep, we did. We met with Brian, and given everything that's happening and going on, we are going to ask for the board to consider a 25-cent increase. Again, this is only on our families who pay full price for breakfast and for lunch. And it is up to the board if you choose to do this or not. But again, like Doug said, we're trying to keep ourselves even as much as we can. But I would expect we're going to see some more fuel charges probably in the fall.
Yeah, I can just add to this that every time we go to the grocery store, it costs more money. It costs more money to get there. It costs more money to buy the food. And what I advocated for with Meg and Doug is we have to make sure that we're continuing to increase prices. I recognize that that creates hardship for families, but there's a reality to all of this. Everything costs more. So for us to be able to retain a fund balance, to make sure that we have enough to offset some of the operational losses, this is where we recommend we need to be.
Dan?
With this increase, and it's not expecting you to predict the future, but to guess the future, would this bulk up the fund balance at all, or just keep it flat, or reduce it a little?
It would either be flat or reduced. It just depends. I ran some real rough numbers.
Sure.
On breakfast, if participation stays the same, it might be an increase of $5,000 in revenue. And lunch, again, if everything stays the same, it would be a $35,000 increase. That's assuming everyone pays.
Right. Which is
So there's a lot of
bold
assumptions
prediction
in
at
that
this
number.
Yeah, yeah.
Those, but it's a good question to ask. You know, if it might get us operationally to close to break even, but I'm not sure.
Sure, we don't want it to shrink.
The important thing is to remember, this is an enterprise fund, which means that the revenues that are generated from the individual meal sales should equal the expenditures that are going on. Hence, that's what the enterprise fund is. So, just thinking if this is what it takes, this is what the ask is to kind of get us to be level, I think it's a good ask to have. Any other questions or comments? Or Ginny?
And I know that an increase is needed, but the other thing is, if parents aren't able to afford it and kids aren't getting lunches, it's kind of like a hard decision that you make.
Well, our policy is, as stated before, we don't deny kids lunch.
Right,
We
they
don't give
skip-
them cheese sandwiches,
Yeah.
like has been the misinformation in the past. They get the full, the
Yeah.
full meal that's there.
Exactly. But then at the end, you
At
have to
the end,
figure out where
there'd be a deficit,
the
and
money
then
comes
we would
from,
have to
yeah.
look at how we're going to fund or fix that deficit as we move forward.
But would parents understand that, and would kids go up and get a lunch, or just not sit in their chairs and say, I don't have money for lunch today? You know what I mean? That kind of whole thing kind of
We have,
scares me.
Do the kids know?
We have a lot of folks around at lunchtime, not our people, but monitors, teachers, paras, and they have a good sense of what's kind of happening out there, even in this building. And if there's somebody who's not eating, I could think of probably 10 times it's happened this year across the district, then they'll go up to our food service staff and say, hey, what do we need to do? And our staff will be like, well, first thing is let's get them lunch, and then they'll call me and we'll figure out what we need to do next.
Okay.
So the community that we have really works hard to make sure that the kids know that they can come up and get a lunch.
So there is that safety net, so,
Yes.
thank you.
Dan?
Do the kids know they have no money when they go up to get lunch?
Sometimes. Some kids do. The high school and the middle school, we will tell them, just remind your parents to send a payment in. We don't say, oh, you owe, $2. We don't say that. The high school kids, they sometimes will come around to see, and some of them pay their bill themselves. So we do give them that kind of respect, if you will, to let them see. The older they are, the more they know.
Sure.
But sadly, some of our youngest ones do know, and it's not from us.
Yeah, okay.
Laura?
I just wanted to say, I just think it's so important too that it's not just that kids eat, but it's what they're eating too. And I know you do a lot of work just to make sure they're filling their bellies with really great stuff. And so if the cost needs to be more, I know that this, the accounts receivable, likely that's going to be a bigger number last year if you just follow the trend of that lunch prices were raised last year and the number's really bigger this year and what's happening across our country right now. But I just think it's really important to ensure that they're getting fruits and vegetables and the right portion of a healthy meal. And even if that's on the main meal, even more than the a la carte items. I know the a la carte items bring in the revenue, but I have 2 boys, but just they all the pizza, all the food they want to eat. But I know, hopefully those things too. Do you feel like, I guess my question is, do you feel like they're, for the main meal, that though more students are engaged, are you able to store the amount of food at each school that you need for those entrees and all of that? There hasn't been any issues in terms of supply needed for those students as well?
No. Nope, we're good there.
Shane?
Megan, I just want to thank you. Every year you come before us, and it usually feels like bad news. but you work really hard to come up with new and exciting ideas and new and exciting meals with your staff, and you're always thinking about how to help alleviate the stress on families and children while making sure that they're fed. So I just want to thank you for continuing to kind of, I know you're one of the best in the state, so
Thank you. Agreed.
please, I know
And
it's a
she's
hard
a mama
job,
bear.
but we
She
really
won't tell you this, but I'll tell you this. She's a mama bear. She wants to make sure that kids are fed and they're protected.
like I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm just like, God, this is like heartbreaking kind of, but you try really hard, you're doing all you can, so we really appreciate all you do, and just thank you. I know
thank
requesting an increase every year is tough, but
Yeah.
it's reality, kind of unavoidable at this point.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments?
I remember the day where, where we had a formula that we had to use and the prices had to increase. Even though, do you remember, Brian?
Yes. Yep.
And
It's still there.
we had to increase the price even though we didn't need to increase the price. And so this is like,
That's still a thing.
is it really?
Yep.
Yeah.
So-
Right, Meg?
It is, and because we have a positive fund balance, we don't have to do that. Oh, I mean, that spreadsheet absolutely makes no sense. Like,
But these are
based on.
federal hoops that to get the
Yeah.
money, you have to jump through.
Yeah, so we get to
jump.
check a box
'Cause
that
I can remember
says that
doing
we
that
have
and
money.
thinking, what in the name of God are we doing here? But, yeah. So at least this is a necessary increase.
And realistically, the 25 for lunch and dinner, lunch and breakfast, probably should be 50.
Yeah.
We're not recommending that,
Right.
but it probably should be.
Yeah. Jack?
I just want to say that you get lunch for $5 is amazing to me. And I'm willing to make the motion now, other than to fund free lunches for everyone, in abstention of that, to raise the prices of 25 cents for breakfast and lunch at the 3 schools for the FY '27.
Thank you, Jack. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Vanessa. Any further questions or comments?
I'm
Mr.
sorry, can I just clarify? You said 3 schools.
I think he means 3 levels. We have
3
elementary,
levels,
middle, and
yes.
high.
3 levels, thank you.
Elementary, Yep.
Great. Not, I'll call the roll. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate
Have a good
it.
evening.
Okay. Next order is approval of the April 20th meeting minutes. Hopefully people had the opportunity to look through them. People's names are spelled correctly. Yes, sir.
All right.
Go ahead,
Maybe
Adam.
I'm remembering wrong, and I don't remember the details. And I'm not seeing it in the minutes, there was a discussion about administrative assistant positions at Mountain View, right?
It was discussed under staffing,
It's not in here anywhere that I saw.
right? Was it staffing?
It was,
Wendy Doug?
we were talking about pilots and stipends, and it was in that
It was
That was during staffing.
same area, but it's
Yeah,
not
so,
in here, and I think we voted on it, didn't we?
And non-public, yeah.
Administrative assistants?
So some of the discussion that we had for the particulars was in a
No,
non-public.
we talked about, because there were 2 part-time positions that we talked about combining into a full-time position. We did it in the theater.
I would need to go back and see the video.
Yeah. I'm remembering it distinctly doing it in the theater.
Well, at this time,
Yeah.
for this then, Adam, what we'll do is we will table the review of the approval for these minutes. Make sure that we get that information
Yeah.
looked at appropriately, if you're
Yeah.
okay with that.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll take a look, we'll double check that.
So we are going to table the review of the April 20th meeting minutes at this time, and we will move on to committee reports. We will start with the Finance Committee, and Jack, as the chair of the Finance Committee, I turn it over to you.
All right. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the April 27th to May 4th, 2026 manifest for the total amount of $1,410,563.86.
Take that
for
motion and
someone?
seconded? Yep. Motion by
Okay.
Jack, seconded by Adam.
So the, was the major things, major expenditure, payroll and taxes, benefits was $1,048,878.82. Then we had special education activity, out-of-district expenses of around $26,000. For Lighthouse Schools, $16,000 for Seven Hills, $11,000 for Cresta Collaborative, all totaled $84,793.76. Then we had general expenses with the big ones being the Goffstown Truck Center regular ed transportation, $50,490. Books and equipment from Amazon, $21,000 and change. Eversource electricity, $14,000 and change. Dead River, $13,000 and change. And copier services, $12,000. Some other small ones for a total of $146,716.46. And then we had the food services of $26,110. That all totaled up to $1,306,498.98, which leaves approximately $104,000 in change of expenditures, purchases under $5,000, which can be found on our checkbook register online.
Any questions, comments? Jack, I know you're going to be able to answer this, so I'm going to ask Doug. For the check registry, for those items that are going to Amazon, I know that we get a bunch of them every cycle. Do we list out what they're for, or does it just say a payment to Amazon for each one?
It just says a payment for Amazon, like what we see online for the check manifest.
Yep.
It's a payment for Amazon. What we have within the business office is exactly what they bought and how many of what they bought.
Okay. Should we be putting things like that to say what the Amazon purchases were on the online check registry?
I don't know if the description would be as specific. There's more and more purchases from Amazon every year. And, what we can do is, from time to time, if we want, I can bring in all the purchases. But I don't think it would be overly descriptive from the e-finance software
What we bought.
where we'd run our report from.
If I can add to that, though, so obviously Amazon has just continued to grow. So when we first started purchasing from Amazon, it was a very small amount, and it's steadily grown. So now, as we see here, $21,000. This could be something, Doug, if the A&F committee wanted to spot check Amazon purchases, they could choose a month to do that and ask Mr. Totten to bring in all the Amazon bills and go through all of them. That would certainly be, I think, within the purview of A&F.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, so a name you might recognize from the past is Quill. So that's where people bought a lot of their school supplies before.
Paper.
And that has mainly been replaced by Amazon. Not that we still don't purchase from Quill in other places, but it's
More expensive.
It's expensive, and so we do get some discounts with Amazon being a business account as well. And then eventually, we're working towards getting a rebate from our purchases there also. So that's something that's in the works right now.
Thanks, Doug. Okay, there's a motion on the floor to accept the manifest as presented. There's a second. Any other further questions, comments? If not, I'll call the roll. All those in favor of this manifest as presented, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are unanimous. Okay, looks like we have the revenue and expenditure reports that are provided. Any detail that you want to add to these, Doug?
Just a reminder that they are online for everyone to see as well, and I think we'll talk about them a little bit more as we go down to the estimated fund balance as well. Every month we talk about them. in A and F. We spent a decent amount of time on it this past month, as well as a little bit today as well, so.
Great. Any questions for Doug on this one? Okay. Project title allocations for fiscal year 26-27.
Yeah, so small typo there, projected Title I allocations. So this is some of the money that comes in from the federal government. And I put together a table that goes back several years. This is available for people at home as well, and the board has it as part of their finance reports. So the main Title I that we get is Title I-A, and as you can see, that was relatively consistent. That was down 2.3%. Our Title II-A was down about 16,000 the year before. It was up 16,000, and Title IV-A was up about 2,800, in the year before it was down 2,500. So overall, if we look at a couple of years, it's somewhat consistent, and luckily our largest one of them is decently consistent. So again, these are projections from the state. They won't become finalized until a little bit later, but they allow us to start realizing that we're going to be relatively what we had this year going into next year, which is a good thing.
Any questions for Doug on this one? Okay. Moving on to our next sub-bullet of budget transfers.
So the board has approved different budget transfers that are over $10,000 this year. Between over $5,000 and up to $10,000, what we do is we report out to the board when those budget transfers happen. So one of them was $8,500, and that was for the high school. That was our tech ed, and it went from to supplies, from software, from tech ed as well. So the courses are just turning more hands-on, whether that be welding or working in a shop with wood, than computer-based. So in a lot of ways, a good thing. Kids are active, students are doing, students are creating. One of the newer courses, timber framing, we've had grant money come in for equipment. They actually mill some of their own wood, but it is, what they're making grew in size a little bit. So that took up some additional money. So I went over to the high school a couple weeks ago just to kind of meet with the teachers, and I was able to talk with one of the students too, because $8,500 isn't your typical transfer. And there was a lot of positive talk about it. Being a former sixth grade math teacher, it's great to see that the kid talking about fractions and actually using them and applying them. There's a lot of precision that goes with it, teamwork, perseverance. There are more students by far that are signed up for next year than they have spots for. So they've created a course which students are working together. Students are working towards creating something that will actually be used by the community, and they're excited about it. So I think it's not going over their budget, it's just a transfer, but from what I saw, they've made some good decisions this year with that. The second thing on here is $5,950, and this is the middle school, and this is coming from the Media Center, from electronic information to software. So about halfway through this year, they found out that their online software was not going to be going forward with ebooks and audiobooks. So what we did was we transferred that to physical books. So students, they're looking at other software. There's a chance to get that other software, but it just wasn't going to be able to be completed by the end of this year, because as soon as you go to a software thing, then you're involving our IT department, and there are projects that are ahead of that one. But we wanted the kids still to have choice in reading, so we just transitioned the money from online books to physical books with that transfer. I don't know if there's any questions on those.
No questions? Okay.
All right.
Estimated fund balance looks like it's next.
Yeah, so estimated fund balance. So again, we are still at projection state. Our numbers get better every day, and they won't become finalized though until the summer when the audit comes. So you can see from the sheet, we have two different ways to calculate the fund balance, and what we want to see is a zero variance between the two. So the first way we're looking at revenue, and what did we bring in either over or under what was projected. So, and this revenue does not include the fund balance that was used to offset taxes or that went to the CRF. That will come in a little bit later down. It does show a negative amount as far as the variance, but for revenue, that is actually a positive thing. So we are expected to bring in $814,000 additional dollars than we projected during the budgeting season. So then we have expenditures. And for expenditures, we are projecting that we will be about 1.5 million less than the budget with our actual expenditures. And this is for both revenue and expenditures. It's looking at where we are now, but also some known things coming in. So some known things for revenue is the last New Boston payment for tuition, which is almost finalized, and that's around 2.5 million. The last payment for special education services, that will be about 88,000, and then we still have interest coming in each month for the money that we have in the bank. For expenses, one of the things that is not done is substitutes. So, we're able to encumber different money with projections on what we're going to need to spend between now and the end of the year, including graduation expenses, busing for field trips. So all of that has been encumbered, but it's hard to encumber the substitute. So what I do is I just take out a chunk of money from that, looking at historical, and I include that in increasing the expenditures. So it's not only today, but it's kind of looking forward with that as well. And then we have Fund 11, which for Goffstown, not too many schools use this, but this is last year's money that got encumbered to be used this fiscal year. And you can see that the actual is a decent amount more, about 93,000 more than the budget. And the reason for that is, unfortunately, during the auditing process, there was a board-approved IT storage purchase that happened at the end of last year that got carried into the summer. It was definitely needed. We thank the board for that purchase. But during the auditing process, we had it started on the budget, but then somehow it got removed. And it wasn't noticed until after the process was over. The purchase was still going forward. And so all it really did was, at the end of the day, it gave more money to offset taxes last year than will offset taxes this year. So it's because at the end of the day, we always have enough money to offset taxes. But that was something that got missed as the auditing process happened. We will put more things into place this year, so something like that doesn't happen this year. So a mistake, but we still ended up with the storage product, which was necessary to run our IT and to the demands that it needs. So you can see from that nets out to a negative 921,000. But that does not include the fund balance that came into this year. So remember, the fund balance from last year came into this year, and it was money that we did not need to raise in revenue. So if we net those two, then the projected fund balance is 1.9 million. Now, from that 1.9 million, either things get added or subtracted before we have our unassigned fund balance. So as we go down the list, we can see that vacation carryover or accruals, we are expecting to take away about 50,000 from that. That's banking of some vacation days that can be used in the summer, but they'd be using this year's dollars towards that. We are liquidating the fiscal year 25 encumbrances. So even though we spent more than the budget on that, we still had that revenue come in of that 348,000. So we're kind of adding that back on. We have fiscal year 26 encumbrances. That right now is just a ballpark number of, okay, maybe we didn't plan for everything. So it's a little bit of a buffer. So we put in 125,000 for that. Then we've been talking about the reading program since the beginning of this school year. Wendy has continued to negotiate. She's done quite well, and we believe will be actually less than 375,000. So we at first, I think, talked about like 450 or 500,000 that the reading program might be, but we are better than 375,000. So that's something that will be implemented K through 6?
K through 6.
K through 6 next year. And that includes the PD and the physical books as well. Then we go into our contingency fund. So the town voted to hold up to a maximum of 5%. That is a decision every year from the school board. So there are 2 times when the school board will vote on the contingency fund. One will be at your next meeting in June, and you'll put in an initial amount of what you feel comfortable with that contingency fund being. And then the final time will be after the audit happens in August. So your meeting in late August or early September, you'll confirm what number you want after being able to look at the audited numbers for fund balance as well. So that is bumping it back in, because again, it's an every year type of thing, and then kind of for a placeholder, taking out the same amount. So in a way, it has a net zero impact right now, but I'm not the one who makes that decision. The board is the one that makes that decision. I'm just using a zero impact right now until the board has a little bit more information to make that decision. And then we take out $300,000 for the CRF deposit, which was voter approved, and then $5,000 for some prepaids. So we then have a little over 1.38 million in unassigned fund balance. As we were working our way through the budget talks this year, you know, we have our budget, but then we also have our tax rate, which is made up of the budget and then subtracting the known revenue, and then everything left over at that point is raised in local taxes by the people of Goffstown. So during that, we said that we were looking to offset taxes. Sometimes I use the same mistake too, of saying taxes will go back, but that's not the case. It's offsetting taxes of 1.35 million. So if we use that 1.35 million, then in my opinion, we have more of our true remaining unassigned fund balance, unassigned again, of about 40,000 at that point. So whether we use the first formula to walk our way to it or the second formula to walk our way to it, we're getting the same thing. So it's just a way for us to double check our work. And some people, I won't go into the second one as much unless people want me to. For some people, the first one makes more sense to kind of walk through, and for other people, the second one makes more sense to walk through. It's the same numbers, it's just a slightly different presentation of the numbers. So I will go over this. You'll see the same sheet again with slightly different numbers at our June meeting. Because again, every day the numbers get a little bit better. They tend to, even though we've done work to get better at this, but as the year goes on, that remaining amount tends to grow. It doesn't tend to shrink, it tends to grow as the last payroll happens, as our last checks go out to Health Trust and things like that. So we keep putting things into place. I think we're getting a little bit better at it, but we do expect it to grow from there.
Questions? Doug, if we said this a different way, basically, out of a $55 million budget, you're basically, the variance that you have projected is $40,000 out of a $55 million budget.
Variance from this year, I would think.
Yes is the answer.
Yes. With the 1.35. With the 1.35,
Yeah.
that is accurate.
Yeah. So I would personally combine it with the 1.35. So I would say the variance was more about 1.4 million. But then you're at 2.8%, which is less than 3%, and no one in the private sector wants to go much closer than 3% of their total budget as well, so.
It's always better to give back money to offset taxes versus being underwater and figuring out what to do, so.
Exactly, and that remaining amount, that remaining amount would then, if that was left over at the end, would go back to further offset taxes.
Any further questions for Doug on this? Thank you, Doug. Thank you for the explanation. We look forward to seeing updated numbers as they come up.
Right.
And then we have the CIP plan.
All right, so your CIP, that's the larger pages in your packet. So the CIP is put together by Scott Gross, and what he does is he meets with people at schools, he meets with people at the SAU, he looks at the past ones, and he's looking at just kind of just what the town's doing as well, trying to have put together a good understanding of where the money needs to go for the next, 7 years here. So there hasn't been a lot of changes between this CIP and the last one you saw. Some things maybe got pushed back a little bit further, but I think everything has pretty much stayed on. We do have 2 additions to this, so as we look at the CIP, Scott let me know that it is due to the town later this week, but without a lot of changes, I think we're in a good spot for that. So along with those pages, I'll talk about the 2 main additions, and those are on the bottom of page 3. So they're both at the high school, and there are 2 supplementary summary worksheets for those as well. So the first one that I think you'll see talks about expanding the high school parking lot. So before I start with this, a big thank you to the town DPW. As you look through here, you'll see kind of schematics of it, and they helped us create those. They definitely have different expertise than we do, and we always appreciate our partnerships with the town, no matter where they are. And so thank you to the DPW from the town. So the first one in regards to the parking lot, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that we have a lack of parking here, whether it's during the school day where all of our seniors get parking and part of our juniors are able to buy parking passes. And then there are not enough parking passes for the rest of the juniors, and then none for the sophomores at all as they get their licenses. If you go to sporting events here, especially the football games, people are parking off campus and sometimes not always in the best of ways as well. So parking has been a problem here. We think it will continue to be we know it will continue to be a problem here. So there is a possibility, and we're looking into it more and more, as far as enlarging the parking by about 80 spots. It would continue kind of where the student parking is, and then it would go behind the side of the turf field. So that is where the power lines are, so part of that is kind of more controlled by Eversource. Scott's been in contact with them. They do have some stipulations, but it doesn't seem like anything that would make it not be able to be done. Then there is some thoughts that maybe there's a little bit of wetland back there, so we're looking at that aspect as well. Because as we look at the $400,000 to $500,000 for estimate for this, that does not include too much mitigation to any wetlands. So if that did include a lot more, then it might not make sense to move forward with this plan. But looking at it, how we see it, we don't think there really would be a lot of wetlands impact, but we're not experts. So this could be funded, a lot of it could be funded by impact fees as we are growing due to capacity. And currently, as of like end of February, we had about $394,000 in impact fees. Our first use, if not lose, would be by December of 2028. So we're in a good spot. The district's been in a good spot of using it when they need it to. So there's no need to do something quick without losing money, but this does seem to match a lot of what the school needs, the town needs, and would benefit a lot of things, and just kind of check off one thing that definitely needs to be done at some point. So, we're presenting this. I think there's definitely more conversation to come with something like this. Any questions on the parking before we move on to the next?
Doug, just as a reminder, for student parking, the payments that they make for student parking, where does that money go into, what funds?
It goes into kind of its own fund, revenue fund, and what it does is it pays for, there's a person who kind of walks around and patrols it in a way, so it's paying for that, and then anything left over just doesn't really go anywhere. It's one of the things that gets over revenue in a way. So
does it just go to the general fund, or does it stick with a student, like a student balance?
No, it's all in the general fund.
Okay.
So it is, at the very end, if you look at the revenue sheet, there's principal services, and that's where, so we've raised about $34,000 in parking fees this year.
And if we have an additional 80 spaces that are being proposed, that would be additional money that would go into that.
That'd be additional money.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for parking before we move on to the second proposal? Yes, Ginny.
Any kind of parking that would be up that far would have access not on the road, but on school property for safety, I'm very sure. Any plan would include that?
Yeah, so this parking proposal is just an extension to the left of the existing parking lot, so it's right there. But certainly, anything that would be on our campus, we would want to ensure all the appropriate safety mitigation measures would all be in place.
Thanks.
Yep, so part of this cost does include 4 to 6 additional parking lot lights, as well as security cameras on that as well. So it gets dark here so quickly that we'd light it up and people would feel comfortable. That would be our goal.
And the next item, Doug.
All right, so the next item, as you can see in the second summary worksheet, is in regards to a baseball field. So there is no 90-foot being the distance between home plate and first base, or first base and second base, field in Goffstown, which is owned by the school. So this is more your high school size field. So as your base path is bigger, obviously so is your outfield. So they are the larger type of fields. So for years, the school district has been kind of lucky to use both Lions Field and Allard Field, which has been a great partnership. Allard Field has gone away. That family was very gracious to the district for years, but has now made different decisions on that. So we thank them for that. And so we have Lions Field, but obviously we have two teams. We have a JV and we have a varsity. Again, neither one is right here at this campus. And as we look at a 90-foot varsity or baseball field, doing anything currently at this campus or at the middle school campus would be hard as far as extending our current fields. So there is a thought, and you can see where a projected field could go. It would be behind the JV softball field, which is the one that you got the JV softball field, then you got a little extra of the field, and then it goes into the turf field area there as well. It would require an access road. So a field by itself is not cheap, and then you add in an access road, and it just adds money as well. But without having any fields at all for baseball, it is something which the district and it makes sense for the district and the town to look at. As we look at this, there's an estimated project cost of $1 million, but there's also very clear information in here that cost does not include backstop and fencing, dugouts, scoreboard, public address system, and security cameras and wiring. So it does include the access road and about 20 parking spots down there by the field, but nothing more than that. So we don't see this as like a next year thing. We see this as something that the town would benefit from talking about and kind of thinking about, but it is something that we want to say is a need for the district because of what we have now. And it's something which we think would benefit the district as well. We don't have a lot of fields by our campus. If you were to go on to Google Maps and you looked up Goffstown and you looked at other high schools in the state, you would see a lot more green around the other high schools than you would see around Goffstown. So adding a field definitely could make a lot of sense.
What questions do we have for this? Vanessa?
Doug, and thank you for getting this all together. You said the DPW helped out. Do you know if there was any consideration just looking more long-term and seeing if there was a way to put a second field there at the same time? Because two fields won't cost $2 million. Wouldn't we be able to consider maybe some cost savings by bringing the equipment in once, Do you know if that was a conversation at all?
That's a good point.
So if I can jump in, it wasn't part of the conversation for this, but we've had general conversations about the need for increased field space.
Yeah.
So general rectangular fields that you can use across multiple sports and multiple seasons, that's really what we've seen the need to be. You're right, if you're going to mobilize the equipment, you're going to do the engineering, to do a slightly larger project is certainly not double the cost.
Yeah.
So that could be something that we could explore a little further. And again, I think it was the town engineer, Scott Osana, is the one who did the work on this. So we're very appreciative to Adam Jacobs from DPW as well as Scott. But we could take a little more of a look at that. We did talk about and have talked about general need for rectangular fields.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, if we're gonna talk more about it, I don't wanna beat
So
a
we're
dead horse.
going to talk, this is certainly a topic that the board will talk more about it, but the CIP is due to the town this week.
Yeah.
So I think for now, I would recommend, let's move it forward, because we know that the need is there, the town knows that the need is there, but then we can always go back and revise these things. The other thing, if I may, is I wanted to make sure that you saw, Mr. Gross also included what we call affectionately the mini CIP. So these are items that are on our collective radar, but they are less than 25,000. If Mrs. Vermakowitz is watching this, she will appreciate that we're still maintaining this list because this was very important to her. But so these ones don't hit the dollar threshold, but all of these things are important. All of these things are critical for us to make sure that we're maintaining our schools appropriately. And as you've heard me say many times, the schools are the most valuable asset that the taxpayers of Goffstown own. So it's our responsibility to do a good job of keeping them up.
So with that being said, Doug, it looks like we need to approve or adopt the CIP plan tonight so we can send it to the town. Do we want to go over a high-level summary, especially for our new folks that are here, for what CIP is and looking at those particular items?
Yeah, so capital improvement plan is a way for towns to kind of budget out their needs as far as the buildings or parking lots or items that cost a lot of money. So as they're looking at expenditures over 30 years or 6 years, they're trying to get to more of a level when they can, and then when are they going to use municipal leases or bonds also. So it's a planning tool that's supposed to be kind of the school and the town working together. And that's what I think we see within Goffstown as well. And that's where the meetings this summer will kind of lead towards. So as you can see here, there are some years, if you flip all the way to the back, last page, and we go down to, I think it's row 321 in the red, where you're around 2 million or 1 million or 1.5 million, so you're somewhat consistent, and then you move on to, and again, this doesn't mean it's going to happen for the people at home, but this is to lead a conversation, 28, 29, where there is larger expenses, because you can't always chip away in an even way, and that kind of supports normal tax growth without sometimes bonding things out. So you can see during that year there are more projects which would lead more towards a bond if that were to occur. Because you can see the total price for that would be about 13.5 million. So, what could lead to that? If we look at 28, 29, a lot of it's the roof replacements. So again, it might not sound fun, but we know at our own homes, our roofs only last for so long themselves too. So we do have to plan for those replacements. There's things like septic system replacements at the middle school, which New Boston is dealing with in the moment during the school year as their septic system failed.
Too soon.
But as I remind people, they got 50 years out of it. That's awesome. That is good.
Oh, that guy back.
That is great.
They don't make them like that anymore.
But there's a lot of parking lot work too during that year. So sometimes, it might be replacing different doors or generator or windows, but sometimes it's grouping of things that would add up more to a bond or release.
Any questions about any individual line items for the CIP? Because we are going to be asked to adopt this to move forward for this summer. Dan is going to be representing us. Thank you, Dan, for taking on that. Doug, just looking at line on the last page, it's near and dear to my heart, line 295, the new elementary school that we had listed. I know that we had listed out for years earlier than the 31, 32 range. And I know that there was widespread discussion of an elementary school versus a middle school. It looks like the price has increased out in that fiscal year from what it was.
I think Mr. Gross has, he pushed it out, but I think he looked at some of the current costs of building a large-scale facility and they are outrageous.
Yeah.
So I think that's a high number, but I'm sure he would say, by the time 2030 comes around, who knows what anything's going to cost. So I think he kind of went a little high.
To follow up on that, I just know one of the reasons why we looked at a new elementary school versus middle school was because that's where our bubble continued to be, is at the elementary school, not the middle school. And elementary schools tended to be a little bit cheaper to build versus middle schools.
Correct.
Yep.
That's why we kind of looked at having a new elementary school listed there. So Dan, just for your information, if it comes up. Any other further line items from the CIP? If not, then I will entertain a motion to adopt the CIP as presented to be sent to the town for review. So moved. That motion has been made by Shane, seconded by Ginny. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor of adopting the CIP as presented, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are unanimous. Thank you, Doug and Jack. We will move on to Budget Committee. Ms. Vanessa, how was the first meeting that you went to?
Well, guys, buckle up for budget season. It's a great watch. It was a joint budget and select board meeting, and there wasn't any motion or anything, but it looks like what they're looking for is to establish targets early on, get things out in front of them early on, and then work more collaboratively over the entire season. So another joint budget and select board, I guess, will happen every quarter. So the next one will be in August. And there was a little bit of chatter about, caps and percentages and things like that, but nothing obviously set in stone. So can't wait to go back.
Was there any takeaways that we had from the school board perspective?
No.
No?
Nothing. They were happy to see me. I was happy to be there. And I just want to say, they put their tables up on the stage and made it more in a U. So I would highly suggest maybe that next time the school board is in there, we could consider that shape so we can see everybody's face instead of the long Last Supper tables. Just a thought. It was nice to be able to see faces.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah. Easy fix. Easy fix.
Harder to paint when it's in the U shape, though, from the artist's perspective.
Work on it, yeah.
Great. Do we have a next meeting for the budget at this point?
No, they didn't set it yet.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to C&E.
CNE, our next meeting is May 18th at 7 PM at the SAU.
Great, thank you, Ginny. PNC.
Yes, PNC met this evening. We will have non-public later at the end of the meeting. We talked about the retreat quite a bit, and we've been working with Brian on the agenda and what items we'll cover at the retreat, and if we can move some of the items to June 1st. Is this, I didn't, because you're not going to be here June 1st. We had a little bit of discussion about that.
Where am I going to be?
You're going to be
I
here?
think the thing that maybe cover, you said you're
Oh, yeah, no, I'll be here.
Awesome, okay. That clears up any confusion. Anyways, so we did talk about the retreat and we're narrowing down the agenda, so we should have something pretty firmed up, and Brian Scott will have some notes for you.
Great.
On that. We, what we call the STRATCOM, our strategic communication plan, we're still working on that. We will have a draft to share with you on June 1st. And it's something that we will likely discuss at the retreat. And then actually going back to the retreat, we're exploring the possibility of maybe bringing in a facilitator to have more discussions around topics of interest to the board. We don't often get a lot of time to dive into some of the issues. There's been a lot going on, so we're working on that. And to that end, we'd like to send out a survey to get some ideas from you on topics that you'd all like to be able to spend some more time on. We've got some initial ideas on that, so we'll share those out. And what else? I think I've got everything. Is there anything else I missed that we want to cover? We will be meeting again because we want to get this done. We're going to be meeting again at the end of May on the 28th to work on the strategic communication plan, so it'll be in better shape, and we'll get that to you on June 1st.
Yes.
Could I just add one thing? Retta mentioned that we would be going into non-public later this evening to discuss a PNC item. Those are scholarships here at the high school. So it's not very often that we have non-public for this subcommittee. It's a really good thing. It's for student scholarships. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Retta. Move on to policy.
All right, so policy has not met since our last meeting. We will meet again on May 18th, which is next Monday, 5:30 at the SAU office. And in just a few moments, we will look at the Q&A policies from our last meeting. You'll remember that the first two of those policies are policies for review. And after that, going into the C's and the D's, those are policies that are optional. And we had discussed about whether or not we want to delete them. So hopefully you all did your homework.
Thank you, Shane. SAU board meeting report. Is there a report about that?
We won't be meeting again until the fall.
There was conversation about potentially looking at the budget and approval of the budget early in the
Yeah,
process.
I think we had already talked about, Doug, I'm not sure if you had weighed in on that, but we didn't have any objection to that. Made sense.
Yep. Very good. And then
Is
we'll...
that an August date or a September date?
I think it'll still be a September date.
Because there's a meeting in October, so it's September.
So they were looking to do the budget adoption earlier than December. So so we may end up doing an October and a November.
Okay.
Might be how it actually plays out.
Okay. And then we'll move on to the superintendent report.
Thank you. So I wanted to give an update on some legislation stuff. There's a lot going on with respect to legislation. There continue to be around 70 bills that are still moving through the process, with another 24 that are on the table until the final gavel falls. May 14th is the next date for House and Senate sessions. A very full agenda is expected, and a committee of conference will form the week after that. Amendments, including floor amendments, which do not receive any kind of a public hearing, are now being acted on. So there's a lot going on. A couple that I'd like to highlight. House Bill 564. This was a new one that has popped up since our last meeting regarding SAU budgets. This bill changes the SAU budget adoption RSA and would require a vote on town meeting day for the SAU budget. And one thing I wanted to share with Goffstown in particular is it has to be voted on by all the towns in an SAU. And if the vote fails in any of them, then the budget fails. So essentially, New Boston, if New Boston voted the SAU budget down, Goffstown would have no ability to act upon that, even though you're around 80% of the operational costs. So I'd share that with you. Here's another one, House Bill 1300 establishes a biennial local tax cap question during even-numbered state elections. And there's also a cap on the SAU budget that's tucked into that. It looks like there might have been an amendment to that one today, so we'll see when this plays out, but it's it would be a tax cap. Even though a tax cap can be created at the local level, this would be the state imposing that decision on all local towns. The next one I would share is House Bill 1268, and this provides access to education freedom account students to things like academics, athletics, co-curriculars, and it requires the creation of a policy. So the board is aware that I have a draft policy that I've been holding on to, waiting to see what happens with this. So we're going to continue to pause on that for now, but it looks like we're going to be required to have the policy. So we're going to wait and see what happens with that one. Minimally, what I would probably let the board know is if we have EFA students that elect to take courses or access things like co-curricular or athletics in the fall, that while the process The policy would not be done, given our policy procedure and timeline in terms of presentation to the policy committee, coming forth for a first read, having a Q&A. That whole process is going to take us a couple of months. So we might want to let EFA families know that over the course of the year, that policy will be adopted at some point. So that can be something we can talk about at a later point, but I wanted you to know about that. I wanted to share that there was some pretty significant damage done to Lions Field. I would call it vulgar graffiti, pretty disgusting actually. And I'm very pleased to announce, and I didn't include it in your correspondence folder because I didn't print out the police department's press release, but they caught 2 people. So 2 people have been arrested, and given the nature of racist, hateful, vulgar graffiti, these will be felony charges. So congratulations to those 2 individuals. And a couple of other updates. I wanted to let you know that we're having some issues here at Goffstown High School with our elevator. So the good news is Mr. Loring is optimistic that they came and removed parts from the elevator, which we believe means that the new parts to replace them are en route. But as of right now, we don't have the necessary parts and the elevator is offline. So at this point, we're okay with that. If we had a need, we would move courses or classes to another level of the building. Unfortunately, this is not a lack of desire for us to fix said elevator. There are very few vendors. You can't get parts. Parts have to be manufactured. It unfortunately takes time. So that's in process. I wanted to also let you know, one of the things for the FY27 budget process, we budgeted for replacement of our low voltage fire lines. So this in Goffstown, there are a number of these lines that it's essentially an old fire system that the fire department maintains. They put us on notice that they would stop maintaining those next year. That impacts Mountain View in particular. So that has gone down and it's not being repaired. So we have authorized Randy to move forward with that. So we will be changing to a private service that will be more like, think about an alarm type company. So we've activated that to happen because the fire suppression, it's been taken offline earlier than the fire department anticipated. So we'll move forward with that. And I wanted to let you know there was yet another data breach. So we continue to hear about a lot of these data breaches. I wanted, if you didn't hear about the one that pertains to Canvas, Canvas is a learning management software that is used by all the university system of New Hampshire, and the New Hampshire Education Department allows districts to access that under their account if they want to. This did not impact us, except for some students taking classes through the Virtual Learning Academy. There was some impacts there. So it did not impact Schoology in any way, shape, or form, but I wanted to let you know about the impact to our Virtual Learning Academy students. And my very last one is kind of a sad, bittersweet one. I wanted to point out that this is Mrs. Moran's last meeting with you. So she wasn't going to tell you, but I wanted to make sure that I told you. So she didn't want a cake. We already did that at the SAU meeting with the cupcakes and stuff, but this is her last day, and I just wanted to recognize her and to thank her yet again.
Thank you, Mrs. Moran.
Thank you.
And I'd be happy to answer any questions, myself, Mrs. Kohler, Mr. Totten.
I'm not sure how we'll get by on our meetings without Mrs. Moran. Do you have
Agreed.
a very good person in line?
I suspect that we will have a very good person in line, but not quite Mrs. Moran.
No.
Great. Shane, go ahead.
I had a similar question to Ginny. I just wanted to see if we had someone lined up because we know how important that position is. So hopefully there's someone that can almost fill the shoes.
I think we've got a really good replacement. Really good replacement. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Moving on to old business, we have Q&A of some policies, so I'll turn the meeting over to Shane to review those items. Hopefully people have them from our prior meetings.
So these are the question and answer policies. So the first one is KHB, which is the advertising, sponsorship, and recognition in schools policy. So again, this is the question and answer kind of session where we can kind of pick through them if we need to, and then they would be up for adoption at our next regular meeting. So I didn't know if anyone had any questions, comments, concerns, input on KHB, which is the advertising, sponsorship, and recognition in schools. Retta.
I have some questions, and my general comment is, in my gut, I cringe a little when I think about, the advertising, but I know there's a lot of pros and cons to it. So, and it looks like you've had a lot of good information in here. I did have a question about the revenues that will be used to enhance the curricular and extracurricular activities. How, is it a separate fund, or how will we know that this needs to be used for those specific activities?
That's a great question, because that's one of the things that we were hung up on quite a bit in the subcommittee, was how do we know if someone's kind of has the idea that that money is for the football team.
Right.
How do we know that the football team is getting the money?
Right.
And things like that. So I think that that's going to be something that we need to determine as far as how we're going to kind of do that. And then we also, the question that spawned from that was, if we have a team or a club that is less likely to have a lot of money, think, I don't know, bowling, do we want them to be unable to access any of this money, or how we're kind of thinking about the equity piece of it.
Right.
So we did bandy that around quite a bit. And I don't know, Brian, you found it?
Yeah, one of the things it's really important to make sure where money is coming from and how it's being allocated, and to make sure that it's really clear. So I don't want to speak, I don't know, Doug, if you can speak to this at all. Scott and I had talked about a couple of different options, but to have a special dedicated revenue account is kind of what we had talked about. There are limited ways to do that, though. Doug, anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I would agree that we would want its own account to keep track of it. And then the question would be, and I don't know which way this committee wants to go. I mean, if it's coming into an account, we can only hold on to that money for a year, where if it goes into a CRF is when we can hold on to the money longer.
Right.
So we would either have to kind of move it forward to a CRF, which it would make sense to be its own CRF as well, or kind of have known projects to do within that year as well.
But being a CRF, that takes time to create. So that has to go before, that has to be part of the budget process, that has to be approved by the voters. It has to be established before you can put any money into it or access it.
Ginny?
The money that comes from advertising, is that going to be available to all of the groups, or is it going to be pinpointed to?
I think we're actually looking more facilities related and less group related. So don't think about, purchasing uniforms. Think about putting it back into the facility itself. So that's my take, is that I think the money that comes in from ad revenue, we should invest back into the field, making sure that we're taking care of, all of the seating, expanding, our grass care, et cetera, making sure that everything's being maintained properly.
And this would be all of the fields?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
The gym.
Yep.
The gym, yeah.
Yep, I think that would include inside as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
An example of that, Ginny, was when this first came about several years ago, when Scott and I stumbled into a meeting. There was questions about, wrestling mats, being able
Exactly.
to have those, and this would be an opportunity where we could use this fund for new wrestling mats. That would be advertising from a wrestling program or something along those lines.
Okay, because there's some programs that are going to generate a lot of revenue, football, and then there's others like bowling, probably bass fishing, but they still deserve to have equipment that works, or field or gym that's up to par. So I'm just hoping that everybody has stake in the game with the funding, not just the big sports that bring in all the money.
I would give you my assurance that it wouldn't be that. It
Okay.
wouldn't be that the football group or the softball group or, some motivated group is going to come and access those funds. It's going to be district directed back to the facilities. It's not going to be, this would not be, uniforms and those kinds of things. It would be more hardscape facility stuff.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, because I just think it's fair to, if we're going to advertise it, everybody has a playing field.
Yeah, just in regards to that, I just wanted to say in our committee discussion, we talked a lot with Scott about this, and it being that it doesn't replace some of the activities at the booster clubs, and I think page 3 of this really
Okay.
outlines that more, where if there was, the football booster club has a certain thing, they're doing signage, that's something different than this large scale, something that would be on scoreboard, something like that. That would be money that would go into this established fund or CRF, however it's established. But I think page 3 offers like some of the guidance on that.
Okay, thank you.
This is a lot easier, and I'm not looking for an answer, but in the middle of page 2, there's a numbered list, and it looks like everything got made small case and then a period. I looked online. I'm not the grammar police, but it seems a little awkward. Should it be a comma? Should it be capital? I don't know what the answer is, but I think maybe look back into that because it looks funky to me.
And I think we.
Shan will have that as a takeaway.
I would say I think we did note that too, and that we need to. I think it was actually Laura who said that we need to kind of make that uniform as far as the some stuff uppercase, lowercase.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know what the correct way is, but.
Right, but something consistent.
Well,
I know
if it's
what's right, I know
consistent,
what's
it's
wrong.
good.
You can't do it right, do it neat.
We're good with that one, Shane? Let's go ahead and move on to the next one.
All right. The next one is JFABB, which is the foreign exchange student policy, which again, I think the major thing that we had discussed last time was we're at 5, bring it down to 3 to be more in line with districts surrounding us. I don't know if anyone had any input on that.
Retta.
Do we know what it costs to host an exchange student? What does it cost the school? Is there any cost associated?
These are some of the interesting factors, is there is no cost.
Okay.
There is no cost to the family. There's no cost to the organization that sends them. But there are costs associated with our school district.
Okay, and that's what because this is a budgetary decision
Yeah,
going.
I mean, you would think it's essentially a per pupil cost.
Right, okay.
Yep.
And then the other question I had on page 2, and it's, the board has the ability to waive this, but anything beyond 3, New Boston would be responsible for paying for that student. Is that correct? If the student
So right
came-
now, if you have a high school student from New Boston is not paying tuition for that student.
Right, up to 3.
Yep.
With this new policy, it would be up to 3. But for Goffstown, if the board approved to have another student, Goffstown wouldn't pay anymore, but New Boston would, or is it just, it's coming out of our budget, it's coming out of the Goffstown budget? I'm just looking at the equity, is it the same for New Boston as if it's more than 3 students?
I don't know that we discussed that.
So we've discussed that internally, and it would probably be a function of who came in at what point. So
Right.
when we identify 3 seats, when the 3 seats are full, then it would be
Okay.
5 is high. So I think that Wendy had shared this with the policy meeting. I kind of had a hankering that this was a little high, and then when we had Mrs. McCann called around, we are the only school district that's at 5.
Okay.
So everybody else is at 3 or lower. So I think that the adjustment is appropriate.
Okay, great.
Yep.
You all set, Retta?
Yep.
Okay. Ginny, did you have a question?
No.
Okay, I thought I saw your hand up.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking, because we seem to get, every year somebody comes in and asks for 1 more spot, or 2
That's
more spots.
because
so-
they know that we're very generous.
Okay.
And so we have that reputation you may have that reputation as a board as well.
Okay.
All right, so those two policies will come back at the next full board meeting for adoption. So then we're getting into the optional policies, starting with CBB. So as we talked about, they're alphabetical, so we did the ABs, now we're into the Cs and Ds. So hopefully you guys were able to review some of these, and if you have any thoughts about whether we should eliminate them or should keep them, please share them. CBB is the appointment of superintendent. It's basically a one-sentence policy.
So this is saying that it has to be the SAU that would appoint. It can't be Goffstown, that New Boston has to.
It couldn't legally be Goffstown or New Boston independently.
Right. So if we get rid of this, do we have anything else written any place else that would state that?
It's in the state statutes around the SAU responsibilities. So as an SAU, there are certain functions that fall to the SAU level.
Okay.
Yep. So a lot of these, and this will be a theme that you'll hear, a lot of these optional policies are very, very old. And many of them have not been revised in 20-plus years. And if there are things that are otherwise in other statutes or in other administrative rules, it makes good sense to consider getting rid of them so that you have less policies in your policy manual, maintain the ones that you have to have, and keep them more current. So that's kind of the thinking.
And if I can just comment on that, I think one of the things, if we just say, oh, it's in the, it's in the regulations, then people don't, they're not going to go looking in the regulations, whereas it's in the policy, they can see it. It's a limited list, it's in plain English, it's easy to find. So if we're getting rid of the policy, would anyone know? But with that said, when it's a policy that's one line, it's like, what does this mean? So,
Well, and if you didn't have the policy, nobody would know either,
right,
right? If it wasn't in the manual, you wouldn't know it.
right. Sometimes they have a purpose, though, to help people understand that it's important.
Yeah, for sure.
That one's fine.
All right, so we're keeping this on the table for deletion? Okay, all right. The next one is CBF, which is the Code of Ethics for Administrators, and I think this becomes a little bit redundant because of the fact that we have the state Code of Ethics now. So I would argue that this is probably redundant since we have that. Okay, all right. All right, the next one is CHC, which is Regulations Communication. Again, this is basically a one-sentence policy. And seems pretty self-explanatory. Unless anyone disagrees. All right. Next one is DBB, which is the fiscal year, which basically defines our fiscal year. First day of July to the 30th day of June.
Is that a state mandate? So, okay.
That's, let's see, RSA 3210, transfer appropriations.
We just made our own local copy. What's
that?
We just made our own local copy.
Essentially, yes. All right, we're good? All right.
Ordinance to support state law.
We now have DBF, DBG, which is budget hearings and reviews / adoption procedures. So again, we're citing RSA 32 and RSA 40:13. Any objections? All right. And that brings us on to DC, which is taxing and borrowing authority / limitations. Or it's limitations, not lamentations, limitations. Look at this.
I was reading that going.
Well, I said it, and I'm like, wait a minute.
I really,
Still kind of works.
I really don't want to have to borrow this money.
Does anyone have any strong opinions? All right. Then we have DD, which is funding proposals and applications. I see no objections. All right. Moving on to DEA, which is revenues from local tax sources. See people are reading. Everyone okay? Jared?
Thank you, Shane. Just looking at this, I don't know if this might be good to keep because it at least explains the process to somebody that doesn't know the process very well. I don't, I'm just looking at this. I know this pretty well. I think most of us do, but I don't know if keeping this helps explain it to, Joe citizen or Jane citizen if they don't know the process. And therefore, it should be kept.
We could certainly keep it and update the review date.
Retta?
I'm just saying, this is an example of one of those things that it's useful because it's plain English. It's not some reg that you have to dig deep for.
All right, so let's keep this and we'll update the review date. Is that fair?
Yep.
All right. DJF, which is local purchasing. I'm hearing crickets. We're moving on. All right. And the last one is DG, the Depository of Funds. And now I'm hearing air circulation, so I'm guessing we're good on that one too. All right. Thank you all for reviewing all these. I know it's a lot to go through, so thank you for kind of taking the time to look through these as we. That's the D's, so logically, we'd be looking into the E's next. All right, thank you
We
guys.
won't even get to the Fs because there's so many E's.
Thank you, Shane. I know that we're going to be going into new business now. I know we're going to be doing a scholarship discussion, but Retta, I didn't know while the cameras are on if you can kind of do at least an elevator speech of the scholarships to let everybody know what they are and know that we're going to be discussing them later on.
Great idea.
There's 2 scholarships that come before us every year. And there is a scholarship committee, and they make some recommendations for us to review. So one is the Mildred Stark Scholarship, and I'm doing this out of memory, but I believe this scholarship is for community service, civic engagement, and there has to be 2 students, a male and female.
Yes.
Boy, girl. And then the other one is the Doris Paley, who I love. She was our nurse in the school. Anyways, this is a scholarship specifically for those going into nursing and/or healthcare.
And so the process is that they would be brought to the board, and selection will be made for the award winners, and those would, again, we'll have videos of those for the presentation.
Right.
For those particular items or not?
For, those will be presented at, when they give out all of the scholarships. And I believe that's either happening sometime in May or early June.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you, Retta. Thank you for kind of...
Yeah, and as the committee had, we discussed a little bit, if you have a chance to go to those presentations, it's really pretty impressive. And I really like that the scholarship committee tries to make sure that, they're not all going to 1 or 2 people, that they're really trying to spread them out to all the students.
Great. Thank you, Retta. I appreciate that. So we will be going into non-public for those discussions. And the next item, Brian, I know that you talked about it at our last meeting briefly, but looking at the start and stop times based on the GEA contract and how that affects our schools.
You bet. Thank you, Jared. So you should have in your packet a memo that was put together and highlights the status of this. So I reported that we were still working on this. So at this point, I don't want to read the memo, but it does provide a lot of really good, important information. So in March 2026, voters approved a new collective bargaining agreement between the Goffstown Education Association and the Goffstown School District. In addition to salary adjustments, a key provision of the approved CBA was the requirement that teachers receive a 30-minute uninterrupted lunch period. And as part of that, we have the authority to extend the instructional day to accommodate to meet the required 30-minute lunch period. So as we looked at this, implementation of this provision affects each of the schools a little differently. So at some schools, including Goffstown High School and Glen Lake, existing schedules already allowed for a compliant 30-minute teacher lunch and did not require any other internal schedule changes. At other schools, most notably Mountain View Middle School, the current schedule did not allow for a dedicated 30-minute lunch without some restructuring. So just to give a little history of this, prior to contract negotiations in late 2024, the middle school administration convened a working group of teachers and administrators to revise the middle school schedule. That middle school working group attended a NELMS conference, which is the New England League of Middle Schools. So that was a dedicated special scheduling conference in January of 2025. And they worked for over a year to explore different school schedules and different configurations. In late 2025, the group explored a block schedule for Mountain View Middle School, which would look a lot like the current block scheduling at Goffstown High School, with the goal of reducing transition times between classes. Administration believes this approach would improve instructional efficiency and it would reduce lost time during transition. So the long and short of it is GEA expressed some concerns with the proposed block schedule, and despite good faith efforts, we were not able to reach an agreement on the proposed schedule by the established April deadline. So I want to share a little bit about the April deadline. In order for us to build all of our schedules for each of our schools, we have to do that through Power School. And that takes extensive time. There's often special configurations that need to be done. So we had a hard stop that whatever we were going to adopt for a schedule, we had to make that decision in April because we had to start building the schedule for the next year. So this is one that I think that there was a lot of goodwill. The teachers, I think overall, really supported, the middle school teachers, supported the movement to a block schedule. But unfortunately, the clock ran out on us on this one. We didn't have it wrapped up in time, and so that brings us to where we are. So if you look at the backside of the chart, it kind of gives an indication. There are some slight start and end time adjustments, but the only increase was at Mountain View, and it's 8 minutes. So we did make a slight adjustment to be able to accommodate that. We should share that we believe the scheduling committee, and Mrs. Kohler has been working with the middle school administration on this. They will be getting the band back together, and we will be continuing to work on that block schedule, and hopefully we'll be able to resolve some of the outstanding issues. So we do optimistically believe that this is going to be a one-year impact, and that next year we'll have a new schedule that the board will hopefully be able to approve, which will include implementation of a block schedule at Mountain View. Mrs. Kohler, you were pretty involved in all these meetings. Anything that you would add or anything that I left off?
No, I don't think so. I think much appreciation to Mrs. Williams and the group that was meeting over at Mountain View for all of their hard work. As the board knows, and for people at home that are watching, at the elementary level and at the high school level, we have 90-minute instructional blocks. And at Mountain View, because we had a lot of itinerant staff and we also had halftime staff, it was hard to go to 90 minutes because of that. Now we're in a situation where the time is right for us to make that transition to 90-minute blocks so we have continuity throughout the district. So they're working really hard on that. Of course, there's a lot of logistics that go into scheduling, so trying to figure out how to get lunches in there, how to get recess, and how do we make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students is a big part of that. But I believe we're going to get there. And I know from the meetings at Mountain View, the blocks themselves, the logistics around the blocks were not the part that we were hung up on. It was the other pieces that we needed to bring together. So I just want to thank the middle school for all of their hard work on this. I think we're going to be bringing something back sooner rather than later in the fall.
Questions? Vanessa?
Yeah, and I want to make clear because this chart is super helpful. Thank you for putting it out. So every school except for New Boston and Bartlett isn't extending their school day necessarily, but their times are changing, and so the bus times are also going to change and shift across all of those routes as well,
Correct.
hopefully for the 1 year.
So we're trying to get, there are a number of things that we're trying to fix. So we don't want to have start and end times that are 7:56 to 2:41. We're trying to make things more on the 5 or 15-minute increment. It's just easier for people to remember schedules. So some of these things we are changing, but again, because we couldn't quite finish this, there's going to be another version of it next year. But the busing impacts all the way down the line.
Yeah.
You change one, you change them all.
Right.
These are going into effect?
We'll come back to that. Laura?
I was just noticing on the chart, it just says Maple Avenue has a current end time of 3:10, and I was thinking it was 3 p.m. at Maple Avenue. Is that, okay.
I think you're accurate. So I think it's, right now. at Maple, it's
It says current start time 8:40, current end time 3:10, and then it says proposed start time 8:45, proposed end time 3:15. So that would be a 15-minute difference. Just checking on
Yeah,
that.
that might be a typo on Mr. Gross's chart.
Okay.
We'll blame Scott, because I know Maple is 3 o'clock
Okay.
right now, because that's when we're picking up our daughter.
I believe it's a typo.
Yeah.
I was thinking that too.
So,
Jared, do you arrive at 1 p.m. to park? Pick up at 3? I'm just wondering.
so just to be clear,
I went there, sorry.
just to be clear then,
Yes, it's crazy there.
so Maple would go 3 o'clock and it would go 8:45 to 3:05. Is that correct?
I would want to double check all the times before I agree to that. That sounds right?
Brian, are you looking for a vote for approval of this, even though it's already been in, so ratification by the board?
Yes, please.
So I think if we could at least get the information accurate for a vote, unless if you need it tonight versus our next meeting.
Minimally, what I'm really looking for is the approval of the 8-minute increase at Mountain View. So if the motion was even limited to that, that's the thing that we need.
Other questions? So just as a notation, we won't be voting on the actual start and stop times for any kind of vote for tonight, but we would be voting on an increase of 8 minutes at the middle school, knowing when those start and stop times will be at the next meeting that we have.
Just a question.
Yes, Dan?
So when one of mine was at Glen Lake, he spent the other half of his day at the Y. Does this, and I don't know that you did, does this jive with that scheduling there, or is that going to create a
It
problem?
does. They typically try to jive with us.
Yeah.
So they adjust whatever, our start and end times are. And again, the Y program is really important to families because we still continue to not have full-day kindergarten in Goffstown. So this is probably my chance to say next year we will be one of very few. Timberlane doesn't have it, even though they have the ability that you can get it for some kids and you can buy it for other kids. Hampstead doesn't have it, and Goffstown. New Boston is moving forward. Londonderry is moving forward. So,
What other questions we have, at least for this, for any questions about scheduling? Laura?
Just on this memo, it does say that the GEA's request was for the school district to implement 30-minute teacher lunch without making any changes to the duration of the school day. So is that still in play with the decision?
it
for
is not in
FMS?
play.
Okay.
Request.
It is not in play.
Okay.
Nope.
I saw Jack first, and I'll go back to Dan.
I was going to make the motion.
Okay, Dan?
Just the 6.88 versus the 6.75, I know it sounds minuscule, but is that for your hourly staff going to increase so much time they're working, and then?
No, there'll be some slight shifts that could occur. There will not be increases. That would be a budgetary increase that we would need to address.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions before Jack goes and makes a motion? Okay, Jack.
I'm sorry, I have
Oh.
one more question, Jared.
Go ahead, Vanessa.
The other line that I'm looking at too, Laura, you just reminded me, the SAU was recently informed that the GEA declined the proposed pause. Did they give you a rationale for why they said no to table it to impact almost every school's bus and time change and then add on minutes to Mountain View?
I don't know that they gave a specific, and I really wouldn't want to speak on
Totally.
their part. I do agree that I think teachers need to have a 30-minute lunch. So that is something
best
that I
part of the day.
Yeah, that I believe in. So that is something that we absolutely concur with.
Yeah.
It's just everything is not as simple as it seems. And when you start to move one domino, you end up moving a whole lot of dominoes. So I support the teachers having 30 minutes lunch. I think they absolutely should. So I think it's the right thing. Yep. And hopefully next year we'll have the block schedule that I think will make some good positive changes for teaching and learning.
Other questions? Jack, give it a shot.
Okay, make a motion that we increase the time of Mountain View Middle School by 8 minutes for the school year of 2027.
Motion made by Jack, seconded by Ginny. Okay, any further questions or comments? All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Any abstentions? We have one nay by Ms. Vanessa.
I don't know if I'm allowed to talk, but when my kids went to to Maple Ave, the school day did end at 10 past. They just let walkers leave early,
Walkers.
but it was 10 past for the rest.
So
go
I'm
ahead,
actually
Wendy.
texting with Mr. Demers. Thank you, Mr. Demers, for paying attention. Walker's parent pickup and early buses. There are some early buses that come at 3, but the majority of the buses come at 3:10. That's right for Mr. Demers.
Once again, Mrs. Bean is on the mark.
And always, we welcome your comments about anything.
So I don't know if that changes you wanting to approve the whole thing now.
Yeah, if it's right, do we want to adopt the whole thing?
Well, do we have confirmation that it's right?
From Mr. Demers.
Like, I'd want to know
If
when the
Demers
last
doesn't
bell of
know.
the day rings. Yeah, that's, I mean, if there's different.
That's the end of the day, yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
like,
that's the
you
end
know,
day.
Yeah. you
Yeah,
know.
it's just there's time in the bus room for those kids that
Yeah.
are on those
Yes.
buses.
Yep.
So again, we'll pick this up for next meeting, so that we can be 100% on what it is that we're voting on. Great.
Yeah, we get what you need, right?
Great. Move on to staffing notifications. So turn it over to the superintendent.
Yeah, thank you. So 3 resignations for your approval this evening, and we wish these teachers the best.
I'll make a motion to approve the teacher resignations as presented.
Second.
Motion by Shane, seconded by Dan. What questions do we have? Seeing no questions, we will move on. All those in favor of accepting the resignations with mixed emotions signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We pass unanimously. Okay,
Another speech.
another speech?
Yeah, another speech leaving.
Oh, yes, yes, yeah. Okay. You want me to make a speech, Jimmy?
Friends, Romans, countrymen.
I can do the best. Okay, Retta, I will turn over for 3 things.
Okay, this is my take, so you may have different versions. So the first one, I thought it would be worthwhile to do the account receivables for the lunch program. There's quite a bit of conversation going on there. I think it's good for the town to know about that. CIP, parking lot, and the varsity baseball field discussion. And then I did have the adjustment to the schedule, but I'm not sure if we want to do that now.
I would hold on that, probably.
Yeah.
Reddit, just when you said the lunch part, are you including the 25% increase in that, 25-cent increase in that?
Yeah, it will start
Okay,
kind of
yep.
with the conversation of, yes, so
Perfect,
it'll
thank you.
do that.
And highlight that there's help out there
Yeah.
in the community. For those who are in need. Just
I've
speak
got
up.
like 2 lines
Okay.
that I can include, so if that's something important, then maybe the school board has a one-pager, I don't know, that we could give more information. So I'll try to fit it in there. But I do need a third thing.
The scholarships, perhaps?
Yeah, that we're pleased to
Scholarships.
award
Scholarships.
two scholarships tonight.
And that would probably just have to be the discussion we had under new business.
Yeah.
Since this won't be released into the awards. But that's good. That's it.
Thank you, team. Any other items that come before the board? So any other additional items that we do not plan on discussing? Okay, if not, we will be going into non-public. After non-public, there will be a vote for ratification of the scholarships in public, but the names will not be associated in that vote. So just want to let people know there will be a quick vote after non-public about that. By that time, I will accept to go under non-public under RSA 91A 311 subsection C, matters which if discussed in public would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person. So moved. Motion by Shane, seconded by? Seconded by Vanessa. We'll do a roll call vote, starting with Jack.
Aye, yes.
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 Yes, we are now in non-public, and we will head downstairs for it. Yep. Thank you, team.
Start with fire.